Hi, Derek. Thank you so much for helping with my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Derek. A lot of people know me better as Delta 4 Heavy on Twitter. I'm a launch photographer here on the Space Coast, actually. The launch pads are about 30 miles straight behind the camera for me. I spend a lot of time reading, writing, and then also making video productions about rockets and trying to teach people I know about it. But for the most part, I just do it because I enjoy spaceflight a whole lot. So
Well, um, maybe you could share with us what was your most exciting launch?
that is honestly a bit of a three-way tie for me right now, between the STS 135, the last ever shuttle launch. I was there in person at Rotary Park in Titusville. And then also Crew Dragon Demo 2 for similar reasons, being at both the end of the shuttle program and then the start of Commercial Crew. And then more recently, I got to see the Transporter 2 launch, which was the first time I ever saw a booster come back and land. And just that to me was wild. So
I guess the Falcon Heavy launch, did you get to see that?
I have not seen a Falcon Heavy in person yet. I just moved to Florida this year. But fingers crossed, we should have one this November. So
That'd be awesome. Do you know if it's going to be returned to launch site or if they're
it's
going
actually going to be so the side boosters are going to be landing on the drone ships. Just read the instructions and a short fall of gravitas, and then the center core is being expended. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's a shame. It would have been really nice to get to see the two side boosters coming back uh, to
Mm-hmm.
right next to the launch site.
Yeah. So.
Um, well, I have never seen a launch ever.
Oh, you need to come see one. Artemis 1, man, later this year.
I definitely, considering Countdown to the Moon, how could I miss it, But
Well, you'll definitely be there for Artemis 3, right?
definitely. But there's like, it's not for lack of trying. I went there to go see Demo 2, and
Mm,
my son and I decided last moment to drive from Houston to, Cape Canaveral. And then the
yeah.
weather delays, in combination of other commitments, meant that we ended up coming back and watching it on, on video. So that was really kind of painful.
I remember that first weather delay. I was on Max Brewer Bridge and I got soaked that day. But
Yeah, we were still driving from North Florida, um,
mm.
and the rain was just awful. And in the middle of that, I actually lost the windshield wiper.
Oops.
I know.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
you know,
there's not much you need on your car in Florida, but windshield wipers is probably one of the things you really need if you're going to live in Florida.
Absolutely. And it's the first, well, it's not the first time it's happened. It's actually like the third time. But I think we got it cured now, so it's good. I'm
Mm.
ready for next time. So I know you're looking forward to Artemis 1. I imagine that must be the biggest thing you're looking forward to the rest of this year.
For me, honestly, yeah. Even if the schedule right now is looking towards it being, early next year, for me, that's, it's whatever. It won't, that being pushed won't be a big thing. But for me, it's just, I've waited for the SLS program I've waited for this launch for more than half of my life at this point. It's incredibly important to me to get to see this. And just, as a kid, I was always told stories of, oh, hey, NASA was this great thing. They did, Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo back to back to back. I always wondered, will I get to see that? And honestly, I am now. We're sitting here, within the next 12 months, we'll have two new super heavy lift class rockets online. That is unheard of, since the 60s. So it's just, I'm just excited.
But what's your second favorite launch that you're looking forward to?
Probably just getting to see a Falcon Heavy. That's probably my second most looked forward to launch is getting to see one of those fly. I've seen Delta 4 Heavies fly. I've seen Atlas 5s, regular Falcon 9. I've seen too many regular Falcon 9s, honestly. But I'm looking forward to seeing something new. And I just got back from Virginia a couple days ago to see an Antares. That was really cool for me. I got to do remote cameras for it. So
So how did your interest in spaceflight get started?
I, this is always really funny. I always had a bit of a passing interest when I was a kid because I was born here in Florida, and but I still remember the exact moment when I was like, I want to do this. It was in the checkout line at a store. A family friend of mine showed me a picture of NASA's new rockets at the time, and it was Ares 1 and Ares 5. And to me, those all will always have a special place in my heart. A close friend of mine actually gifted me an original print Ares 1X mission patch for my birthday this year. But really, it was that moment where I was like, this is cool. I want to be a part of this. I want to help other people get to experience it because there's nothing like it.
And I imagine you found out about the Artemis program and the plans to go back in the moon 2024 probably in real time.
Yeah, yeah. I've been following this program pretty much since day one. I remember the first thing I heard about it was this animation that wasn't even from NASA. It was this little animation this person had thrown together in probably 5 minutes just to show the rocket. And that was the first time I ever heard of SLS. And then, obviously Artemis got announced 3 years ago now that as the official program. And here we are now.
Well, I've interviewed a lot of people in person just randomly. If you happen to sit by me in the plane, I might say, "Did you know?" And or the bus, or if I happen to see you at Starbucks or at the mall. And of that group of people that I just randomly talked to, about 80% of them have no idea that we're planning to send people back to the moon.
A lot of people, don't think of that in passing, especially right now, I think. But I don't know if that is necessarily because of like, a lack of, talking about it. Almost everybody I know, they know about SpaceX. They know about that. But the reason they know about it is because, they see stuff like, the Starship development. We see that as it happens. In reality, the public eye hasn't seen much of, the Artemis program. We had the Ascent Abort 2 flight back in 2019, and really that's the only Artemis flight that's been public. It's just I think the moment when the public will start to realize what's happening is when we fly Artemis 1. It's the program is here. We have the hardware. We've seen it fly. We haven't gotten to that point yet. But we're closing in on it quickly. And I think that'll be the key moment the public starts to see it and go, hey, maybe we should pay attention to this. This is about to be, it could be legendary.
I think you touched on something that I think might be part of it too, is that there's a bit of hope fatigue. All these previous attempts to do great things, like in the George W. Bush period of going back to the moon, and then all this talk about doing these things in space, and then nothing becoming of them. So I wonder if people maybe do see information about it, but their brain automatically goes, NASA plans, not going to happen, not worth remembering.
I think you're right because something I do a lot of research into historic vehicles. It's part of my job at Space Scout. Is I write articles about things that are interesting, and it have really SLS is the first rocket in a long time NASA's been able to get off the ground. That's new because you look through the shuttle program, about 17 different programs were launched at some point to either fly alongside or replace it outright. And up until Ares 1 got close with Ares 1X to a flight vehicle. It was new hardware, but what obviously wasn't complete hardware. And now we're finally getting to the point of NASA's able to go through with a program, and I think once we get that flight, once they see the hardware, once it's flying and doing its job, that'll be the very key moment that is where the public will get interested again.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to have some experiences that validates that. Like after Artemis 1 is a success, and I start interviewing people at Starbucks, and that number goes from being 20% knowing about it to, maybe 40 or 60 or 80. That would be a really an exciting transformation, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the issue is you have all these kids that at some point may dream about space, but they don't think it's practical. They're surrounded by people who don't think it's practical, that there's no future in it, and all these things. I mean, it almost seems like um, if we don't reach them, then we'll be losing all these engineers and scientists and entrepreneurs that could potentially create this really exploratory future.
I think that is a very, very valid point. After the shuttle program ended, I followed space flight still, but, I let myself sort of fall away from it, just kind of go on autopilot for a little bit because nothing outside of, my direct family was really mentioning it at all. And then finally, it was about 2015, I was like, hey, this stuff is still flying. Why not try to go see a launch again? So, and then that summer we came to Florida again just to visit, and we went to see a launch again. And honestly, it was probably the moment where I was like, you know what? I'm focusing on this again. I can do this. I know I can. And weirdly, it was CRS-7, the first failure of a Falcon 9 in flight.
Hmm.
So, and then I remember being a little disheartened after that. But then a few months later, there was another launch in September. It was an Atlas V, the Morelos 3. It was United Launch Alliance's 100th mission. And I have some friends who've worked at ULA, and they managed to get me in as a VIP to view it. And that's honestly the moment for me when I was like, because if we were 2 miles away from the pad, it is still the loudest sound I've ever heard.
Did you like feel it through your body?
Yeah, so there was a building behind us. We were at the 39A viewing gantry site, and there was a building behind us. And I remember because it took off and it was a cloudy day, so we didn't see it for that long. But I remember at one point I turned around and looked behind me, and the whole building was shaking like this, visibly. It was incredible.
Wow, it looked like probably one of those big speakers that you see whenever people are playing
Yep.
music. Um, so what do you think about us going back to the moon?
I think it's the right thing. We learned a lot with the shuttle program on long duration space flight. We still are with the ISS today. The only thing that's bothering me is we aren't using the program to its full capability yet. But that might change very soon, and that makes me happy. We've got the RS-25 production line back up and running. We're making new engines again. The Michoud assembly building is making more SLS core stages. And if we get the green light to go and use the program to its full potential, we could be flying 3 or 4 Artemis missions per year. If we do that, we can theoretically lead to permanent human settlement on the moon, similar to how the ISS operates today. 6 or so people at any given time. That, I think, is the long-term key right now. If we can get that program running at full potential, full production of SLS, full production of Orion, RS-25s, you name it, all the hardware, get those up and running, and then supplement it with outside programs. That's the thing, because that was the flaw with shuttle. They didn't keep developing. They made the program and they stuck with it. Now the shuttle, fantastic hardware, but what needed to happen is you needed to keep building it. You needed to build more of them. They needed to fly more, because that's how you make things safer. That's how you make them cheaper. That's how you make them just better. You fly more, not less. So if you take all that we've learned, apply it to Artemis, suddenly we can support, probably one of the greatest expeditions in human history, and eventually, lead to directly supporting a Mars mission too.
Um, well, what do you think about Starship?
It's a very interesting idea. That's where I'd say that. I think it's a bit of a one-trick pony is what worries me. I don't think it'll be the end-all be-all of spaceflight, and it doesn't have to be. That's I think something I need to make clear. It doesn't have to do everything. I think it is a fantastic design for a Mars mission, building a lander and vehicle all in one that can do everything. I think that's a good idea. Using it as the moon lander, I understand why right now, but long term, I don't think it's the design that should be used. I think there needs to be something that stays at the moon that can be refueled there with something, say, a Centaur 5 with an extension package. I just think there are some things with Starship we aren't seeing from the outside necessarily, but I think it will have its purpose long term, and I think it will be a very useful asset to have. I don't think it's going to completely change spaceflight,
Did you get an opportunity to watch Tim Dodd's kind of tour of the Starship
I've seen
facility?
bits and I've seen bits and pieces, but I have not had the chance to sit down and watch through the whole thing. There's, um, and that's just on me. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I was just,
So,
I mean, I don't remember of another situation where you could actually walk into the factory where they're actually building the vehicles. I mean, it's
mhm.
just, um,
I have been lucky enough to go inside of United Launch Alliance's factory more than once, so I've gotten to do that myself a couple times.
oh, that's
So
awesome. And
yeah.
how much of that were you able to publish?
Uh, I when I did it, I wasn't a photographer yet, so it was mostly just me, my friends treating me. But I have a couple pictures of me, just around the factory, including with the booster, the Atlas booster that's now going to be that supported OFT1 back in December 2019, and then the one that's going to be supporting Lucy here in a few weeks, as well as me with the interstage section of the Delta 4 Medium Plus 4-2 used for GPS 3 Space Vehicle 2, I think it was. So, but that's pretty much it. I didn't get to go through and obviously publish everything, but Smarter Every Day did a factory tour a couple of years ago of the ULA plant. So,
Oh, I'll have to take a look at that. I really
yeah.
like Smarter Everyday's videos. I was watching the one about
Mm-hmm.
the grass and the little seeds that were coming off. That was kind of
Mm-hmm.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I, okay, well, a lot of people are like, "Hey, we've already been to the moon. Why bother? Let's go to Mars." What do you think?
I think Mars should be a target. I think we need to be going there. But if we just go straight to Mars, I think there's a lot of lessons we'll have to learn there that we could learn direct. Just instead of being 8 months away, it's 3 days away. If something goes wrong with, say, designing a habitat for the moon, and they're like, okay, this design isn't working. Well, guess what? It's not that hard comparatively to just get back on your moon lander slash ascent vehicle, go back up and abort the mission. It's 3 days and you're back home. Whereas on Mars, if that happens, that's not really an option. You have to wait for fuel to be remade. You have to wait for phasing orbits to come back. There's a whole lot to it. But if we design the technology on Earth, test it on Earth, then test it in flight on the moon, suddenly, hey, we can solve these early problems before they become, catastrophic mission enders. So,
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge I see are with the crew, just
mhm.
their mental sanity, having the skill sets to be able to handle whatever comes up and these types of things. Almost feel like that in addition to the moon, we almost need like big flights that are go out beyond the moon and back and ever increasing things. I mean, they don't actually go anywhere close to Mars, but they're like, 100-day missions, 200-day missions in these big orbits where you're going to come
I
back.
see. I totally understand where you're coming from that. I think that is somewhat, already applicable with the ISS. Like, sure, yeah, Earth is right there, the communication is there, all that. Yeah, that's helpful. But you're still away from home for upwards of, some of the longer duration stays of over a year now. We're doing that experience already. And I think that is a good idea to, maybe maybe not like leave Earth's sphere of influence, but go into a really high halo orbit, maybe. So,
Well, and from the people's perspective, I mean, you're right. They're there for 6 months at a time, and they're experiencing that. I mean, they do have the safety, blanket of look out and see the Earth, which if you're like 3 times the orbit of the moon away, the Earth is just going to be a little star to you, I think.
yeah.
Um, but the other thing is the ground controllers are really the ones controlling the ISS, moving the solar panels, keeping it oriented. And, either the astronauts or the systems that they have are going to have to be able to completely manage their ship.
Yeah, it's it will be interesting to see what we actually end up doing for a Mars mission. I said I like the idea of Starship for Mars, but I do think a good idea, especially at least for like, long term or early missions even, is on orbit assembly. We proved we can do it. So why not use that to our advantage, build a bigger craft, maybe use Starship to help build it. I think that's a fine idea. I think it's a great low Earth orbit vehicle. It's very contingent on refueling for past low Earth orbit. That's known. But, that tech should be there. But if we can develop, bigger habitation, bigger, more efficient engines, like restarting the NERVA program a few years ago, to me, I think that was one of the keys to us suddenly making a Mars mission real. So,
Hmm. So where do you see humanity going in 500 years?
I don't know. It's just that's a question to me. It's like, I think about it sometimes, and honestly, I couldn't tell you. There's so many things to change here and there. There's so much we just don't know. As far as we know, the capped speed limit of the universe is the speed of light. But we've already sort of know that is beatable in a way. Um, it's just such a weird and complex thing. I'd like to say, oh yeah, we'll be traveling to other stars and other, galaxies by that point. But, part of me says, maybe we'll just be explorers who have more than one planet in our solar system right then. It's such a weird, it's just a hard thing to grasp,
It is, and it's kind of funny listening to Jeff Bezos's views and Elon Musk's views about where humans should go. And Elon's like we should have that city on Mars, and Jeff Bezos like we should be building O'Neill cylinders and that type of thing. And
Mhm.
it's kind of funny. I think they're both kind of right, but I feel like you need that city on Mars to create the reason to create vehicles that go back and forth to Mars. And in the
Mm-hmm.
process of creating that, you'll create the technology to be able to create the O'Neill cylinders, which then you don't need planets at all. You just the pop, you start disassembling meteors, asteroids and planets just to create your own artificial worlds. And then
Yeah, I
once
mean,
you've like done that, you can now start sending one of those off on a journey to another star system.
and I think what you've just hit on the head there is why we need to go to the moon first, develop the systems, expand, develop more systems, and keep expanding. That's how progress works. You don't take one leap, then stop for a while. Like we unfortunately what happened with the Apollo program, and then what needs to happen is you take one leap, you learn from it, you develop and make that system more and more efficient, and then with the newer efficient technology, you can take a bigger leap. That's just how it should work.
Absolutely. I mean, the more activities you have, the more you'll develop infrastructure. The more you develop infrastructure, the lower the cost of the activity, and it's just like it starts feeding on itself.
Mm-hmm.
Those first steps are so expensive, though.
Yes, they are. I mean, but I mean, we're already seeing that. Apollo program, when adjusted for inflation, I forget the ballpark number. It was like 100. I want to say like 112 billion, but I don't know if I'm totally right on that. for full development to first flight. And, people say, oh, the SLS program is super expensive. Well, not in the grand scheme of things. Sure, it's a lot of money. $20 billion is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But that is the cheapest rocket ever developed by NASA. That is progress in itself. And, you can say all you want about, oh, private can do it better and all that. But really, you need both. You need government to be trying to do something there, private to support it, but also, if the government suddenly decides, we don't want to do it anymore, private can keep going and doing their own thing. That's why the balance is good, but when both are doing it, you go faster and further. But if one drops out, you don't lose it like we lost it in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time right now to think, we got, Blue Origin, SpaceX, Sierra Nevada, and their Dream Chaser, and Rocket Labs, and all these other companies. It's just, I guess also Firefly. I got to remember the one that's in my neighborhood.
Yeah, Firefly, Relativity. Next year alone, there's something like there's 7 new rockets debuting from the Cape next year. That's unheard of. So
that's going to be really exciting. Yeah, I mean, kind of thinking through, how is the world going to be 500 years ago? It started sort of asking Christopher Columbus, tell us about, what the United States is going to look like, and he would have no idea. I mean, I have trouble imagining him being able to imagine what would have unfolded in North America during that last 500 years. Well, if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
Absolutely. Heartbeat. I look, even if it wasn't affordable, I'd do it. Part of me, I'm in college right now, but I haven't totally decided on what I'm going to do long term, but part of me is still saying, hey, get that master's degree, go to the astronaut corps and fly now. Don't wait for it to become affordable. Go out and chase it right now. So I would absolutely, of all the flying rockets right now, I mean, I'd strap myself to a Falcon 9, an Atlas 5, SLS. Don't think I'd strap to a Starship just yet, but we'll see in 10 years.
As long as you jump off before it lands.
Yeah, just give me a parachute. It'll be fine.
Yeah. How far would you go? Like just orbit to the moon, immigrate to Mars?
I would definitely go to the moon if given the opportunity. I would do an Artemis mission. I don't know how much further I would go though. I don't think I'd want to live in space permanently. I'd love to, I'd love to go, and I'd probably love to go more than once. Do a couple missions, but living there for the rest of my life, I just don't think I could do it.
But I wonder what the experience would be like, because spacesuits do not seem like a fun thing to be in.
Yeah, they're fun for a short time, not fun for years on end. So,
and you're like the only kind of interaction you physically have with your environment is visual and just the difference in gravity.
yeah.
You don't get any sound, you don't get any feeling, you don't get any smelling or breathing. It's not like going on a trip here on Earth.
It's just what you see. So, it's a good question. How much will astronauts be willing to do, long term? So, yeah.
But I keep thinking about like those brain to computer interfaces that are being built. I mean, can you imagine having one where you have sensors on the outside of your spacesuit and you can actually have that feeling directly connected into your brain?
That's an interest. I've never heard that idea mentioned before, but come to think of it, it's not a bad idea. I don't think I would do it. I don't like the idea of, I don't like the idea of having a computer in my brain just yet. But it's not a bad idea for that sort of long-term deal. And also, I think that brings up another good point as well: development of spacesuit technology. Um, right now, spacesuits they're functional. The new Artemis spacesuit, despite its high cost and everything, it's the most functional spacesuit ever built. That's just it. But developing something that maybe translates the feel of the world a little better. You get a little bit of sound from walking around just through the vibrations through the suit and the air in the suit. So it'd be interesting to see where that kind of technology could go. That's a good idea.
And spacesuits and COVID, I can't believe personal suits haven't become more popular. Just the idea of completely bring your own air with you. Then I could survive any pandemic now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just cost. Which which is cheaper, a full enclosed bodysuit or a piece of paper over your face? So
Well, that's true, but you know, uh, this isn't going to be our last pandemic.
ah, fingers crossed it's the last one of my lifetime though.
That, well, there's two ways to look at that question. You're assuming a normal human life.
That's, you know what? That is a fair point.
Yeah. Maybe you would like to survive 5 or 10 more, but they're just like 100 years apart.
Mm.
Uh, well, that's pretty much all the questions I had. Did you have any questions or things you'd like to add or talk about?
You know, I think something that I just like to talk about when given the chance is spaceflight outreach. I think that's something I like doing. With the Delta 4 account and everything. Um, it's just there are things I want to do and I want others to see that I think are hard to translate to somebody who doesn't know much about spaceflight yet. It's just I think that sort of thing needs to be done better. I think more people need to learn about spaceflight, need to see it, get to understand it even just a little bit. So I think that's just where I want to leave that. I want more people just to get to see it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's funny. So that brings up another thing, and that is a lot of people have some really weird misconceptions about how the local area works. A lot of people believe that if you go high enough, there's no gravity, and I think part of this is because of the terminology that we talk about zero G and microgravity, and it's
Mhm.
really not. The phenomena that's being experienced is free fall. It's
Yeah.
you're traveling so fast forward that as you fall towards the earth, you're literally your your fall rate is matching your moving forward rate in such a way that your path just kind of bends around the earth.
This is where I think Kerbal Space Program has been one of the biggest things to help with that sort of thing. It's because that teaches it's a fun game. You get to blow stuff up. Oh wait, suddenly I know basic astrophysics and I understand how orbits work. That sort of thing is what we need more of. We need more things that teach people without them realizing they're being taught because they're having fun. That is the most effective way. That is the fastest way, and it is the best way to get people excited and to know more. That sort of thing.
I've been meaning to play Kerbal. I know that there's a new version coming out. Have you
The
heard anything about
last
that?
the last update to Kerbal Space Program 1 just came out a few weeks ago. And then Kerbal Space Program 2, which is a new ground up game, basically designed to make the game run better and just overall smooth over a whole lot of things, is coming out mid next year, I think, right now. So a lot of people are looking forward to that.
Well, that's awesome. Outreach is a very big I think that's important to me too. We have the North Houston Space Society. We have our monthly meetings that we invite people to. Um, I, I'm always on the lookout for ideas that we should be doing in order to kind of
Mhm.
engage broader sections of the public. And you mentioned outreach is something that's very important to you. I was wondering if you had some ideas that we should be looking into.
Yep, this I think a good idea that I've had for a while. It might be a little hard to implement just due to the nature of these sort of events, but high power rocket launches that the public know about that are, attendable. Maybe because that sort of starts to give you a taste of what a real rocket could be. And if you could somehow get SpaceX or NASA to somewhat take part in the event and maybe bring out, because NASA has a couple of the RS-25s, they have mobile for that sort of thing. If you could bring out something like that so people could see, oh, this is a full size rocket. Wait a minute, how much bigger is that compared to these? Because these are already pretty powerful. That sort of thing. When you can start to make people think about it, that's when they'll learn about it. So
Absolutely. And Peter Beck, the founder of Rocket Labs, he was somewhat of a stuntman with like his rocket motor, a rocket powered bike. You talk about really get
yeah,
people fired up.
uh, yeah.
Well, Derek, I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for connecting with me.
Of course, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll keep that date on for 2024 for Artemis 3.
I'm definitely counting down to it.
Yeah,
Well, you have a good rest of your day.
you too. Thank you so much for having me on, and let's go Artemis.
Let's go.